to ourselves. Okay, I mean the copy of the session. All right, so Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon, everyone. So welcome back to UHL2452 English for vocational purposes. I hope that all of you are in a good condition. Okay, and yeah, what else can I ask? How was your holiday? Is it okay? Class, are you there? How was your holiday?
Okay, sir.
All right.
Nah.
Not bad. Okay. So I have finished marking all of the assessment for assessment one. And inshallah within this week, I'm going to key in the marks in the system so that you can have a look at the marks later on. Okay. So I will inform you once I have key in the marks and then once I have published the marks in the system. All right. Okay. So before we start into detail of what we are going to do for today, okay, we are going to have a look at the attendance first, okay? So when I call upon your name, please answer yes as a proof that you attended the session today, okay? All right, we're going to start with Tengku Aiman Arif. Are you here?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, Muhammad Aiman bin Muhammad Ghazali. Muhammad Aiman bin Muhammad Ghazali, are you here? Okay.
Sir, Aiman goes to hospital because he's sick.
He is sick.
Yes.
Sick because of?
Stomach ache.
Oh, stomach ache. Okay. Hopefully nothing serious, okay?
Yes.
All right. Muhammad Razif, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Daniel Shazriman.
Yes, sir.
All right. Muhammad Nazrul Shazwan.
Yes, sir.
Okay. One Muhammad Ali Firdaus. One Muhammad Ali Firdaus, are you here?
Yes, sir. My microphone is problem.
Okay. You're having a problem with the microphone. Thank you for responding. Muhammad Ashraf bin Zainul, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Muhammad Amir Zakwan bin Abdul
Yes,
Ghani.
sir.
Alright, great. Muhammad Akmal bin Zulkifli.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Muhammad Afiq Rafiqin.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Muhammad Fatih.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Muhammad Amirul Zuhairi. Muhammad Amirul Zuhairi, are you here? Okay, never mind. Abang
Doctor,
Muhammad
I have a problem with my mic.
Amirul Zuhairi, right?
Very sorry.
Okay, alright, Amirul Zuhairi, you are here. Alright, no worries. Abang Muhammad Mustaqim, are you here?
Yes.
Alright, Siti Nur Ayu Azlin.
Saya, sir.
Alright, Hazim Shakir.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Datu Muhammad Nur Faizuddin.
Yes, sir.
Muhammad Aiman Haikal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Hudami Iklash.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Muhammad Hafizuddin bin Matsani.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Megat Muhammad Nur Fahmi. Megat Muhammad Nur Fahmi, are you here?
Yes, sir. Sorry, my mic problem.
Oh, okay, alright. No worries, okay. Yatul Adawiyah, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Andi Izzat Ikhwan.
Yes, sir.
Right, Muhammad Syamil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Nurin Fatihah.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Muhammad Zain.
Yes, sir.
Johan Buhari. Johan Buhari,
Yes.
are you here? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Alright, Akmal Daniel.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Muhammad Izzat bin Sazali. Muhammad Izzat bin Sazali, are you here? Okay, Izzat bin Sazali is not here. Muhammad Izzat Izani.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Muhammad Izzat Izani is here, but Muhammad Izzat bin Sazali is not here, right?
Yo, dia macam mak pun semua ni pakai duk cek aku cakap kata weh ayah salah.
Yeah, yeah. Staff, could you please switch off your microphone? Ashraf. you can switch off your microphone. Okay. Izani is not here, right?
Yes, sir. Saya ada, sir.
Okay, Izani, you're here. All right. Izani is here. Izzat Sazali is not here. Okay, never mind. Muhammad Nur Haziq.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. All right, only 2 people are absent for today. Never mind. All right, so I'm now going to share my screen with all of you. And let's have a look at what we are going to have for today. Okay, in the meantime, maybe you can log into Kalam. Okay, try to log into Kalam. All right. There are 2 things that I would like you to do for today. Okay, so first, go to Kalam. All right, you scroll under week 7, okay, which is the new chapter or new topic, module 2, process and procedure. Okay, so later on, I will ask you to watch this video, why do we need SOP on your own, okay, so you can click on it, all right, and then it will bring you to this video and you can watch it later, okay, this video, all right. I need you to download these 2 things, okay. Number 1 is standard operating procedure, which is in Microsoft Word form or file, okay, and also standard operating procedure in PowerPoint file. So you can download it now, okay. Log into Kalam, go to week 7, module 2, process and procedure. So this is our second module for this semester. Click on standard operating procedure, Microsoft Word, download it. And standard operating procedure, Microsoft PowerPoint, download it as well. Okay, right. So this is the latest weekly planner for UHL2452, English for vocational purposes, which I have shared with all of you last night. Okay, right. So we are now in week 7. As you can see, this is going to be introduction to SOP, our first meeting today. Okay, we're going to have a look at SOP, standard operating procedure. All right, we are going to look at the definition of SOP, how many types of SOP are there, and then we're going to look at the format of technical SOP. So in the second meeting this week, which is on Wednesday, it is going to be asynchronous class. So for the asynchronous class, I have not decided yet on what we are going to do. So I will inform you in our Telegram group, okay, what are the things that you need to do in our second meeting this week, which is on Wednesday. Okay, all right, I'm supposed to give you the briefing on assessment 2 this week, but I'm going to carry it forward to next week. Okay, all right, because the assessment is going to be very straightforward, and then you can concentrate on it afterwards. Okay. Right, again, so for the first meeting this week, we're going to get into the new topic, which is on introduction to SOP or standard operating procedure. We're going to look at the definition of SOP, types of SOP, and format of technical SOP. Okay, right. So this is what we're going to do for today. So those who have just joined, or maybe you missed out what you are supposed to do, log into Kalam, go to week 7 under module 2, process and procedure. Please download these 2 files, okay? Standard operating procedure, Microsoft Word, and the same as standard operating procedure but in PowerPoint form. Okay, download these 2 files for today's class, okay? For our class today. All right, so this is the video, okay, which I have shared with you the link, why do we need SOP? So you can watch it later. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing using this device. I'm going to use my other device. All right. So I hope that you are ready, and please concentrate on standard operating procedure, the PowerPoint form. Okay, the PowerPoint form. All right. So I am now sharing my screen with all of you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So we are looking at standard operating procedure or SOP, and this is not something new to you because we have listened to it since 2019 because of COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, but in the aspect of vocational studies, okay, English for vocational purposes, what does it mean by SOP? So basically, we are going to focus something on technical SOP. Okay, but is it true? All right, is it about technical SOP, or what kind of other SOP that we are going to look at? Okay, so we go to the next slide. Right, once you have watched the video clip, okay, the one that I've shared with you in Kalam, the link, right, you need to have a look at the importance of having SOP. So why we need to have the SOP? So some may say that when you have SOP, you can avoid injuries. Okay, the other may say that when you have SOP, you can be cost effective. All right. So if you have the SOP, perhaps, okay, on one point, you can avoid injuries at the workplace. Or on the other hand, if you have SOP, you can maintain a cost-effective production, okay, or operation of your company. So you can look at the importance of having the SOP based on the video itself. Okay, number two, which of the best way to follow a certain procedure? So for example, you have three methods, okay, or three suggested method, A, B, or C. So after you have performed the task using these each method, for example, A, B, or C, and you are going to decide which one is going to be the most suitable or the most applicable method. Okay, which one is going to be the most suitable and which one is going to be the most applicable method. So the best way. So we may have different SOP for each of the production. Okay, but again, we need to choose which one is going to be the best for us to use in the future. Okay, then what needs to be in the SOP and why? Okay, for some people, for example, they prefer graphical approach or images. Okay, what does it mean by graphical or images? So you have the image followed by, okay, you have the image. So this is going to be the image plus the instruction. So some prefer this kind of approach whereby you have the image plus the instruction so that it will be clearer. Okay, so you can understand about the procedure clearer. Okay, so it will be better for understanding. So after you have watched the video clips, okay, perhaps, okay, it can help you to answer all the three questions over here. All right. Okay. So what is SOP actually? All right, we are looking at SOP. So SOP, it is a document. Because it is a document, it must be in written form. Okay, and it is a document that describes, right, the operations of a certain work or job in order to ensure its quality. So our main target is to make sure that we meet the quality demand. Okay, if you're going to work later on, let's say at a plant or at the factory or at a workshop, right, you are going to maintain the quality. So SOP will help you to make sure that you can reach the quality required. Okay, and the SOP should be a written document. Okay, all right. So it is also a set of compulsory instructions, systems, procedures, or steps which is written. Okay, as I have mentioned to you here, it should be written so that other individuals can follow to complete the job safely. Okay, so if you are the person in charge, okay, let's say you are the PIC for the SOP, all right, you need to make sure that after you have completed the SOP, let's say other person is replacing you, he or she can also perform the task using your SOP. All right, so you must make sure that the other individuals can follow the SOP to complete the job safely. So the SOP, it is not only for you, but it is also for other people working at the same institution. Okay, all right. It also maximizes operational and production requirements. Okay, so we have talked about, all right, we have talked about being cost effective. Okay, all right, whereby you are going to avoid wastage, for example. So if you follow SOP, if you follow the SOP designed for that particular production, for example, you are believed to reduce the cost or to reduce the wastage so that you can maintain the cost. Okay, so by having SOP, it will help you on that particular part. Okay, lastly about SOP, the purpose of a SOP is to carry out the operations correctly. Okay, all right. So if you follow and perform it correctly, you can avoid wastage, and at the same time, you can avoid injuries. All right. And because of the SOP, you can always perform the task in the same manner continuously. All right. So if you are going to perform the task, let's say how to replace a punctured tire or a flat tire. So you will follow the same procedures again because you have the SOP for it. If you're going to change the instructions, right, meaning that you are not following the SOP, there is a possibility that you cannot perform the task. All right. So that is about SOP. Okay. A SOP should be available at the place where the work is performed. Okay, all right. So the original should be kept at a secured place, while working copies should be authenticated, right, with stamps and or signatures of authorized persons. Okay, so let's say this is your SOP. So number one, the original copy, you can keep it in the admin office, for example, all right? And the other copy is going to be at the workplace. And the one at the workplace should be stamped, okay? All right, so you need to stamp it. And perhaps you need to get the signature of the authorized person. Okay, I want to ask you a question regarding this word, stamp. Okay, do you know what is a stamp? Class? Class, what is the meaning of the word stamp?
Chocolate.
Yeah, okay. So you normally use the word chop. Okay. For example, sir, could you please chop my document? Okay. And to be frank, this is wrong. Okay, wrong usage of the word chop. Okay, because if you are asking me, sir, can you please chop my document? You are asking me to take the knife and chop your document. So the right word is actually stamp. Okay, and for example, you can see the word rubber stamp here, right? And then the action of putting the stamp, right? We call it as stamping. Okay, so next time when you are asking for authentication of your document, instead of using the word chop, okay, you use the word stamp. Not the stamp that we use to send the letter. No, that is different, what you call it, usage. So over here, you are looking at the word stamp or stamping. Can I have your stamping, for example? All right. So for the one of the SOP that you are going to use at the workplace, make sure you have the stamping and make sure you have the signature. If you don't have the signature but you have the stamping, then it is accepted. So meaning that the copy that you have at the workplace, okay, the copy that you have at the workplace is originated from the one that you keep in the admin office, for instance. Right? Okay, is it clear, class? Class, is it clear?
Yes.
Clear,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, good. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, there are two types of SOP. Number one is technical SOP. Number two is administrative SOP. So let's have a look at administrative SOP first. So it highlights on the administrative processes such as reviewing contract documentation and determining organizational training needs. So in this context, when you have administrative SOP, it is more on management. But what you are going to deal with a lot is actually on technical SOP because it focuses more on technical activities such as, okay, example number one, how to collect a laboratory sample. Okay, example number two, how to fix the R2 engine. Right, so since that you are taking English for vocational purposes, this is the one that you are going to look for at this moment. Okay, technical SOP. Right, so there are two types of SOP. One is technical SOP, the other one is administrative SOP. All right, now let's have a look at the format of technical SOP. Okay, the format and length of SOP depend on the steps that are taken to describe the procedures of the work. So the SOP can be from one page, right, up to several pages. Okay, several pages here can be 2 to 3 page or pages. Okay, up to maybe 5 pages, depending. Okay, it depends on the steps. Okay, how many steps are there? If it is a long procedure, okay, if it is a long procedure, of course, it is not going to be a one-page SOP. It's going to be longer, right? Okay, so it can include a simple one-page hierarchical steps, okay, one-page hierarchical steps. So this is number one, okay, we have hierarchical step, graphical procedures, okay, such as flowchart and even a few pages of procedural process. So graphic procedures is actually number 2, flowchart is actually number 3. So there are two types of SOP. One is administrative SOP, the other one is technical SOP. For technical SOP, there are three types of it. Number one is hierarchical SOP. Number 2 is graphical SOP. Number 3 is flowchart SOP. Okay, all right. Can I combine both? Yes, you may. Okay, no problem. All right. But for your assessment, your second assessment, your next assessment, you are going to have this more. Okay, or you need to focus on graphic SOP. Okay, an organization will have its own format for SOP, and you can follow the following format as a guide to write your technical SOP. Okay, so just to share with you, previously we had a discussion with the people or the representative from the industries. All right, and one of the representative is from Mercedes-Benz Pekan. Okay, and then that person shared with us the template of the SOP at Mercedes-Benz. So just to let you know, in the future, if you're going to start working later on, do not be afraid because the format of the SOP will be a bit different depending on different company or organization that you are working with. So company A, company B, company C will have their own template for the SOP. Okay, what we are teaching you now, all right, is actually a guide. Okay, it's actually a guide on how to write your technical SOP. So we are focusing on the contents. Okay, we are focusing on the contents. Okay, this is more important. All right. So later on, when you are working, all right, even though the format is different that the one from the one that we shared now, the contents will still be the same. So you don't have to worry. And that is the reason why we have a technical SOP as part of the module for UHL2452. Okay. So SOP can be written by individuals. Okay, it can be individually written, or you can also write it in a team. Okay, which is performing the processes. All right. So individually or in a team. Okay. Some example of SOP is here. Okay, shutting down an operation. So if you want to shut down the plant, for example, you need to follow the SOP. Right? Next, how to repair a faulty electrical circuit. So if you're going to do this, you also need to follow the SOP. For example, I need to replace a broken bulb. All right? So I cannot simply take the ladder, climb it, and change it just like that. Instead, I have to follow the steps or the procedures, okay, which can be found in the SOP. So for example, I have to switch off the main switch, okay, I have to take the ladder and put it on a sturdy or flat surfaces, and then I need to climb it, okay, carefully, right? And maybe I need to unscrew the broken bulb, and then I take it out and I replace it with the new one. Okay, so there are steps that I have to follow. All right, or over here, basic milking process. Let's say you own a farm, okay, with cows, and then you want to get the milk. So there is a process that you have to follow, and you can do so by having the SOP. Or lastly, to build a new machine. Okay, to build a new machine. All right. So these are just 4 examples of many SOP that you can have later on. All right. So it can be written by an individual or by a team. Okay. So who should be writing the SOP? Who should be writing the SOP? Right, people who will perform or has performed the job. Who will perform, for example, if you are being hired by a company and the SOP is not there yet. So no SOP yet. So you are being asked to prepare the SOP. So you will be performing the task and there is no SOP, so you are going to create one. All right? Okay. Or let's say if you are the first person who has performed the job and there is no SOP yet, so you're going to create the SOP so that the others who will be doing the same job after you can have a guidance. All right, so that is about who should be writing SOP, number 1. Number 2, right, people who work together on a job, okay, or anybody related with the task. Initially, the engineers, technicians, maintenance, or equipment personnel. So let's say if you're working on this particular area, all right, and then you have a set of SOP that you need to follow. So it is not only meant for you, but also for other people who are doing the same task or maybe different tasks at the same workplace. Okay, so that is about point number 2. Point number 3, people who supervise other people doing the job. So let's say if I am your supervisor and then I am observing you doing the job, so I will prepare the SOP so that I will know whether you are following the correct procedures or not. Okay. Number 4 here, safety and health officer, right? You are talking about rules and regulation. Rules and regulations. So you are checking whether the staff is performing the task accordingly, or the staff didn't follow the rules and regulation or the SOP. Right, as a safety and health officer or OSH, occupational safety and health officer, so it is your task to make sure that all workers are performing the task given to them according to the SOP designated. Okay. Lastly, over here, technical writers, all right, perhaps, okay, they are writing the SOP in terms of manual, okay, or they are writing the SOP in terms of feedback or review. Okay, so these are the kind of people who should be writing SOP, but it is not only these category, it can be different according to the job scope. Okay, all right, who it is meant for, right? Who SOP is meant for. So it is useful for the person who will perform a particular job, such as the managers, the engineers, planners, safety officers, environmental regulators, company representatives, and anybody performing the work. Okay, so let's say if it is manager, you are looking at the administration process. Okay, so the managers will have the SOP so that they can make sure that you are following the right procedures and the process can be cost effective. For engineers and planners over here, it is meant for performing the task correctly. For safety officers and environmental regulators, okay, they need the SOP so that you follow the rules and regulations. Okay, all right, company representatives, okay, let's say, for example, in assessment 1, whereby you attended an exhibition, okay, all right, and then you are showcasing the product or the process to your potential client. So when you have the SOP, you can explain to them how the machine works, for example, right? Okay, so when to write and test your SOP. So please write and test it before a job is begun. So before you perform the task, you write and test the SOP. So let's say you have option A, B, and C, okay, the process or the procedures to perform the task. Okay, you can use method A, you can use method B, or you can also use method C. Okay, right, so you write and test each method. Okay, test it before putting it into final application. So from the 3 options over here, 1, 2, and 3, A, B, and C, right? After you have tested it and then you found out that method C is the most suitable. So you're going to use method B or SOPC, method C or SOPC to perform the task. Okay, so the final application, you're going to use method or SOPC. Okay, all right. You need to revise it after a trial of the job is performed. Okay, let's say you have tested method A, method B, and method C, all right? And then you found out that the most suitable will be method C or SOPC, but you need to do some improvisation. Okay, amendment or improvisation. So you improve some of the procedures. Then C will be the most suitable. So that is when you need to revise the SOP. Okay. You can also revise it when there is any change to the process or even equipment used. For example, you use machine A previously for the process. Then, okay, after a while, the company decided to buy a new machine B. Okay, all right, and then once you have migrated to the new machine, of course, you need to revise your SOP because the one that you had at that moment is actually meant for machine A. And now you are using machine B. So it's totally different. Okay? Right. You can also rewrite it when new information indicates new process. So let's say you have step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, for example, and suddenly, right in between 3 and 4, you're going to have step 3A, step 3B, for example. Okay, then you have to write it back. Okay, because there will be new changes or new process. Okay, the same goes over here when new information suggests new performance, then you have to write it back. Okay, lastly, update your SOP regularly. Okay, update it regularly based on internal and external factors. Okay, internal factors may be, all right, if you are changing from machine A to machine B. Okay, external factors, perhaps, okay, raw materials that you get from the supplier, for example. Okay, so the first supplier is using raw material A. However, the second supplier is supplying raw material B, but the outcome will still be the same. Then you need to update your SOP. Right. So in writing SOP and how to write it effectively, number one, you need to use short sentences because long sentences are harder to understand and tend to include more than one step. So avoid long sentences. Okay, because short sentences will be easier to understand. Right? Do not forget to use imperative because when you are using imperative, you are actually giving the command to the audiences. So the next slide will show you how imperative can help you to reduce the number of words and therefore it is more applicable. Okay, so the passive form here, the weight of feed refusals should be recorded in the feeder notebook. So this is passive form. Okay, so you go for imperative and you can see over here, record the weight of feed refusals in the feeder notebook. So the word record here is actually the action verb. And it is actually the command. So remember, standard operating procedure, you are giving instructions or giving command to the people to do it. Okay, so use imperative, not passive. All right. Okay, next, be concise. Concise here meaning that you should make sure that the content is accurate. Tepat. Okay, so write in a few words as possible. Short sentences, less words. Okay, write short and direct sentences so that readers can quickly understand and memorize the steps. Okay, for example, step number 1, switch off the engine straight away. Step number 2, okay, let the engine to be cool. Right, it's very straightforward. Okay, so here are some example of it. Okay, you can refer to this link later on for some examples of SOP. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now the screen. All right, so the questions goes to you. Do you have any question regarding my presentation? Class, any question? Class, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, any question?
For now, no, sir.
Question?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. If there is no question, then we are going to have a look at this handout, okay? Right, we are now looking at the Microsoft Word handout, standard operating procedure. Okay, I am now sharing the screen with all of you. Standard operating procedure, okay? So this is the first activity for SOP, all right? You recently bought a flashing emergency light. You need to assemble its electrical components. So what do you do? Okay, do you use your experience or do you use the logic of doing or performing the task? Okay, for example, if I don't have any electrical background knowledge, so I will read the manual. But okay, if you have the experience and if you know or if you have a background knowledge about electrical components, maybe you don't need the manual. So the best move to take depends on your experience, okay, or maybe on your knowledge. But again, it is better if you read the manual carefully. Okay. All right, I'm not going to talk about this part, okay, standard operating procedure here, because I have explained it. The contents are basically the same on what I have used or showed before in the PowerPoint slides, okay. All right, let's have a look at the sample format for a technical SOP. Okay, just to let you know, for your next assessment, which is going to be a pair work, right? You are going to use this format. So you need to follow this format thoroughly. Okay? All right. For example, okay, let's say you have a 5 pages of SOP. So what do you need to include in the 5 pages of SOP? Okay? So number one, you must have the reference number. So where to get the reference number? Okay. Let's say in the question paper, each pair or each individual will have different question paper. Okay, you and your partner or you individually will be given different question paper. Okay, so if the reference number is given in the question paper, then you need to follow the reference number given in the question paper. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, that is the reference number. If it is not given, then you have to create it on your own. So, okay, so we are relating this format to your next assessment, which is assessment 2. All right. Then the date, okay, let's say 29 November 2021. Okay, the date that you write the SOP is going to be the date stated there. Okay. Right, so I have mentioned that we have 5 pages of SOP. So this is page number 1 or the first page. So how are you going to write it for page number? So it's going to be 1 of 5. If you go to the second page, how are you going to write it, class?
2 of 5.
Yes, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, and 5 of 5. That is how you are supposed to write the page number. The reference number and the date should be the same for all of the pages of the SOP that you are going to prepare later. But for the page number, it follows the page that you are referring to. So if it is the third page, then it is going to be 3 of 5. Okay, why do we have to write it like this? Because let's say if you are given the SOP to perform the task in the future, all right, and then you look at the page number and then you found out that, okay, the one given to you is 1 of 5. So you will know that they are actually 5 pages altogether. Okay, so there are 5 pages and the one in your hand are only 4 pages. So you will know straight away that one of the pages went missing. So it is an incomplete SOP. All right, so that is the reason why you need to write it like that. Okay, number 2 here, you need to write the title, how to write it. Okay, it is down there, it is at the bottom of the page. Okay, or on the next pages, you can read it on your own after this. Okay, department or unit, the purpose of you writing the SOP, who can perform this SOP, then we move on to the equipment or tools needed. PPE, personal protective equipment, okay, maybe safety goggle, safety shoes, for example. The tools that you need to perform the task, okay, maybe you need a hammer and a Phillips screwdriver, for instance, okay. Reference materials here, if it is given in the question paper, then you have to write it over here in the template, okay. All right. Others, what are other things that you need to include? And then the procedure. Okay, so let's have a look here, right? You need to write the name of the person who prepared the SOP. Let's say for assessment 2, you are the person in charge, okay, to write or prepare the SOP. So you need to write your name plus the designation. Okay, so designation here is actually the jawatan. In Malay, it is called jawatan. All right. So let's say if you are the technician, so you write it, name plus your job title, technician. Okay. Reviewed by, of course, it is going to be someone superior than you. Okay. So the name of your reviewer followed by the designation, senior technician, for example. Okay, this is just an example. So when it comes to the assessment, it will be different, right? Approved by, okay, the name of the approver, who will be the approver? Of course, maybe it's going to be the manager, for instance, okay? Right, plus the production engineer, for instance, okay, this is the job designation. Okay, the job title is production engineer. So he or she will be the approver of your SOP. So write the name followed by the job title. Okay, that's how you're supposed to write it. Right. So for number 1, okay, you can read over here, okay, how to write it. Number 2, for the title, okay, examples given here. Standard operating procedure for transferring liquid chemicals. Notice that all the 3 examples over here is using the word for. All right, so please use the word for when you are writing for the title. So standard operating procedure for what? All right, so it depends on the question paper that will be given to you later on. Okay, so we have activity 4.2 that you can do on your own afterwards, right? Okay, number 3, department or unit. So it depends again on the question paper. All right, so some example given here. This SOP has been written for the research and development laboratory. Okay, or this SOP is written for the research and development laboratory. So you can write has been written or is written, no problem. Okay, but the department or the unit will be different depending on the question paper that you are going to get. Okay, activity 4.3, you can do this on your own. Right, number 4, the purpose of having the SOP. So number 1, you need to have the aim or the function of the SOP. This is the most important thing that you need to have when you are writing for the purpose of the SOP. Okay, all right. The specific audience or the regulatory standards or the safety measure would be optional. If you are going to put it, you're going to get marks. If you didn't put it, you're not going to, no marks will be deducted. Okay, no problem. But you need to have the aim or the function of the SOP. Okay, so example given here, the purpose of this SOP is to provide instructions for the safe use of 50% sulfuric acid. Okay, so you are highlighting on how to provide instructions for the safe use of 50% sulfuric acid. Okay, so that is the aim or the function of the SOP. And in the underlined example here, the worker, so it is actually referring to the specific audience. So it is optional. If you don't have it, no problem. But you must have the one in bold here. Right? Okay. So activity 4.4, you can do this afterwards, all right? Maybe you can start finding your partner for the assessment, and then both of you can start working on the exercises. Okay, both of you can do the exercises. Okay, number 5, the person who can perform the job, all right? It is not, it is specific, but it will be different according to the questions given to you afterwards. Okay, activity 4.5. Okay, PPE, tools, reference materials here. Okay, for number 6 here, all right? For reference material, it is going to be any sort of reading or reference materials that can be suggested or that has been referred to when the SOP was written. Okay, so if it is not given, but let's say if you refer to the additional materials later on for the assessment, so you need to include it in the reference materials. Is it clear, class? Class, is
Yes,
it clear?
sir.
All right, okay. Just stop me if you need further clarification, okay, regarding this. Then activity 4.6, okay. Right, on 7, the procedure, okay, again, it depends on the steps that you are going to use to perform the task. So it can be 1 page, it can be 2 to 3 pages, it can be up to 5 pages, maybe, okay? So there are 3 kinds of format that can be used to write a procedure: flowchart operating procedure, hierarchical SOP, and graphic operating procedure, okay? All right, so this is on flowchart. This is on graphic operating procedure format, and this is on hierarchical steps on writing SOP. Okay, persons in charge, okay, do not forget to put the title of the job, okay, the designation, right? The name followed by the designation. Okay, we can look at the examples down here. Okay, this is an example of a flowchart operating procedure format. So look at the shapes over here, 1, 2, and 3, and each shape, okay, will have different functions or role in the flowchart SOP. So if you look at this shape, it is actually the terminator or the start and stop points. So you can see over here, start and stop, right? Okay, if you're looking at the rectangle shape over here, it is actually on the process. Okay, description of the action taken. So as you can see over here, hit the engine for 5 minutes. So that will be the process. If you have this shape, okay, the diamond shape over here in the flowchart SOP, it is on decision. Okay, whether to proceed or not. As you can see over here, right, after you hit the engine for 5 minutes, okay, this is going to be the question. Are there any problematic sounds? If the answer is yes, okay, then there will be other processes that you need to perform. If the answer is no, then you can straight away go to the next process, which is drive the car at 80 km per hour at a distance of 1 kilometer. Okay, right. So this is on flowchart SOP. Right, if you're going to write using the format given there, okay, right, the format given and the same one that you're going to do for your next assessment, right, you can see over here reference number, okay, this is the date and the page number 1 of 3. So we know that this is page number 1. Okay, all right, the title, standard operating procedure for testing the performance of a new car. So we have all of the contents here. Right, and this is on the procedure. Okay, but remember, this is just a general knowledge for you, okay, on flowchart and hierarchical SOP, because for your next assessment, it is going to be graphic operating procedure. Okay, so this is how you can put the information on procedure. Okay, then we go to the last part of it, prepared by, okay, let's say this is your name, Muhammad Amar bin Imran. And what is your job title? QC engineer. Reviewed by, okay, Sharifah Dewi Orchid over here. The title or the designation is senior QNC engineer. The approver will be this person, Hannah binti Hussein. The role in the company is the general manager. Okay, so that is on flowchart SOP. Okay, for graphic operating procedure format, it is a bit different, whereby you are going to have the information being arranged from left to the right. So before is going to be step number 1, equipment preparation step number 2, during alignment step number 3, and after alignment step number 4. So if you're asking me, sir, is it going to be only 4? No, it depends on the situation given to you. All right. So sometimes it can be more than 4. Sometimes it is only 3. So it depends on the question paper. Okay. For each of the component here, before alignment, under it, you are going to have the procedures. Okay. Right. For example, number 1 over here, under before alignment, assure the lab is secured. Number 2, mark the laboratory's door with the notice sign. So what makes it different? For graphic operating procedure, under each of the procedure here, you need to put the image or the pictures. Okay? Let's say number 2 here, mark the laboratory's door with the notice sign. What is the notice sign? Here, laser alignment in progress, do not enter, eye protection required. Okay? If the first procedure for your question, okay, in the second assessment, wear safety helmet. So you need to find a picture of a person wearing a safety helmet. So that is how you are supposed to write it. So this is for graphic operating procedure. So basically it's the same, except that when it comes to this particular part, okay, because on the procedure part here, this is the flow chart, you need to replace it to graphic operating procedure for your next assessment, because your next assessment will focus only on graphic operating procedure. Okay, so this is on hierarchical operating procedure format. So we have step number 1, step number 2, until the final step over here. Okay, step number 7. And how are you going to write it? So it's going to be the same, except that in the procedure, you're going to transfer the information like this, in this form. Okay, again, hierarchical and flowchart, it is just for general purpose. I mean, you need to know, but it is not going to be tested for your assessment, because for your next assessment, you are going to concentrate on graphic operating procedure. Okay? All right. So you can do the exercises or the remaining exercises. And if you scroll down until the last 2 pages, page 15 and 16, we have some notes on tips for listening, because your assessment 2 will consist of 2 parts, part A and part B. So for part A, it is going to be the SOP here, all right? For part B, it is going to be listening, okay? So just go through the notes on listening tips over here. And then next week, inshallah, we are going to start doing the exercises on listening. Okay, class? Any question? Class, do you have any question?
No, sir.
All right. So do you know what is SOP by now? Okay. Of course, it is not something new to you, but in technical context, I hope based on the explanation, you know what is technical SOP, okay? And how many types of technical SOP are there? Okay. We have hierarchical SOP, we have flowchart SOP, and we have graphic SOP. For your next assessment, we are going to focus for graphic SOP. But if you look at the contents or the sources that we have, or the materials that we have in week 7 in Kalam, okay, there are some other exercises that falls under each category. We have the flowchart, hierarchical, and graphic operating procedure. So you can do that maybe for your second meeting this week, which is on the asynchronous classes Wednesday. Okay? Right. So again, one final round. Do you have any question regarding what we have learned today, or maybe
No, sir.
related to your assessment? Not yet, okay? All right. So if there is no question from you, okay, I'm going to stop recording the session now. So